Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ethan Collier, and I chair today's meeting of the Chattanooga-Hamilton County Regional Planning Commission. I wanted to go over a couple things before we get started. There have been some slides that have been playing overhead here, so maybe you've already seen them, but I'll just cover them just in case. In advance of today's meeting, the Planning Commission received this packet in the mail, which is the entire staff report along with the applications that have been made that we'll be reviewing today. And Planning Commission's had the opportunity to review all of these cases in advance of today's meeting. And so at times, the meeting moves really quick. So pay close attention to the agenda and where we are on the agenda so that if you're here for a specific case, you know when we get to it. In each case, what I'll do is I'll read off the case number. Occasionally, I'll refer to the agenda, but I'll read off the case number and the address. And I'm going to ask if there's any opposition here. If you're here and you've got concerns or you've got questions or you've got something that you want to say in regards to the case, please make sure to raise your hand when I ask if there's any opposition here. Otherwise, I won't know you're here, and we may very well take action on the case without having heard from you. Because at times, if we have a staff recommendation to approve and we've got an applicant here and there's no opposition, then oftentimes we'll approve those cases pretty quickly and move through the agenda. So make sure to raise your hand when I ask if there's any opposition here. If there is opposition, or if we've got a staff recommendation to deny, we'll hear first from staff so that everybody in the room can see the presentation that we've received in the mail. And then the applicant will be the first to come up to the microphone, which is right here on the right side of the room. When you come up to the microphone, if you're an applicant, make sure to state your name and address for the record. You'll have a total of 7 minutes to present the reason for the request and what it is that you're asking for from Planning Commission. And there may be some questions back and forth between the Planning Commission members and the applicant, but when that's finished, the applicant will sit down. Then we'll have a total of 9 minutes for the opposition. That's 9 minutes total. So if there's 20 people that want to speak, that's, 27 seconds per person. We do stick strictly to the 9 minutes. It's very, very rare for us to go over that total 9 minutes. So if you want to speak and you're here in opposition, please make sure to get out of your chair, come up and line up behind the podium here on the right side of the room so that I can see how many people want to speak. One little piece of advice is that the Planning Commission does not need to hear the same thing over and over again. It's not helpful for us. It's most helpful for us if what's being said during this process is something that's not already been said. So sometimes people have comments prepared in advance. That's great. But if you get up to the microphone and somebody before you has already said everything that's in your comments, do not read your comments. I mean, it's not helpful to us for you to sit there and read your comments if we've already heard it from somebody else. You might just say, so-and-so said there's a traffic problem, and I completely agree with them. You don't need to say it over and over again. And make sure that you look behind you and that your neighbors and, other folks have the opportunity to speak. Occasionally, I'll have to interrupt people and ask them to stop speaking so that, we can make sure to hear from everybody who's taking time out of their day to be here. After opposition's done, everybody sits down. The applicant will get back up and have 2 minutes to respond to what opposition has said. All the conversation that takes place here today will be between the person at the microphone and this Planning Commission, not you sitting there. So I only say that because it's really important that we keep an orderly and productive meeting. It's not productive if people from the audience start addressing the Planning Commission. So if you want to address the Planning Commission, come up, address us from the podium in a proper way, state your name and address, and speak from the microphone to the Planning Commission. If you're not at the microphone, we're not going to recognize you. And I'm just going to ask you to be quiet, which is not ideal because then you embarrass yourself in front of the whole entire Planning Commission because you haven't paid attention to these very clear instructions that you have to be at the microphone in order to address the Planning Commission. With that, I think that's everything. Is there anything else?
Mr. Chairman, one case under old business from last month, 2023 0203 has been withdrawn by the applicant. We had a recommendation to deny last month and deferred. Staff recommended to come back with a deny. The applicant since then reached out and wishes to withdraw this case.
So that's really important. I'm going to reiterate it. The case that's located at 1702 East 13th Street has actually been withdrawn, and we're not going to hear that case today. And so if you're here in regards to that case, whether you're opposition or whatever, we're not going to hear it today. So you're welcome to stay, but I would leave if I were you. Anything else?
That's
okay.
It.
We'll jump into the agenda. First item on our agenda is under subdivision plats and variances, and this is SD 2024-0001. It's the very first case of the year. That's what the 0001 stands for. And this is Sedman Hills Phase 5, lots 264 through 295 at Fox Gap Lane, and staff is recommended to defer for 60 days. Is the applicant present?
Mr. Chairman, could we revise that recommendation to defer up to 60 days? That way we can bring them back next month because we're waiting on county commission action, which will be this Wednesday on PUD amendment.
Is the applicant present?
Yes.
We have a motion to defer for 60 days, and it has been properly. We have a motion to defer for up to 60 days, and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next case on the agenda is SD 2024-0002, and this is located at 1901 Thrasher Pike and has a staff recommendation to approve. Is there any opposition present? Is the applicant present? What's the will of the commission? We have a motion to approve, and it has been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next case on the agenda is SD 2024-0003, and this is Paxton Point Phase 2, and it's lots 23 through 46, 62 through 63, and 69 through 83, located at Paxton Circle, and has a staff recommendation to approve. Is there any opposition present? We have a motion to approve, and it has been seconded. Any discussion? Aye. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next case is a preliminary plat. It's SD 2024-0004, and this is Windhaven lots 1 through 50, located at 8319 Roy Lane, and staff is recommended to approve. Is there any opposition present? What's the will of the commission? We have a motion to approve, and it has been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next case is SD 2024-0005. And this is a preliminary plat for Hampton Village, lots 1 through 12, located on Snow Hill Road. And staff is recommended to approve. Is there any opposition present? We have a motion to approve, and it has been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next case is SD 2024-0006. This is a final plat for Morgan Estates, lots 7 through 17, located on Poe Road, and has a staff recommendation to approve. Is there any opposition present? We have a motion to approve, and it has been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next case on the agenda is preliminary plat. It's case number SD 2024-0007, and this is the villas at Waterstone Ridge, lots 153 through 178, located at 5108 Waterstone Drive. Staff is recommended to approve. Is there any opposition present? We have a motion to approve, and it has been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next case on the agenda is SD 2024-0008. This is St. Elmo South, lots 1 through 31, located at 5530 Tennessee Avenue, and staff is recommended to approve. Is there any opposition present? We have a motion to approve, and it has been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next case is SD 2024-0009. This is preliminary plat for retreats at White Oak Phase 2, lots 182 through 215 on Gregory Drive. Staff is recommended to approve. Is there any opposition present? We have a motion to approve, and it has been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Did you get that? Mr. Byrd recused himself. Right. All right, our first item under new business is case 2024-0001. And this is located at 9151 Dallas Hollow Road. And it's an application to rezone from C2 Local Business Commercial District to R3 Multifamily Residential District. Staff is recommended to deny the applicant's request and approve other. Is there any opposition present? And is the applicant present? Okay. Can you come up to the microphone? State your name and address for the record.
David Lancaster, 1182 Burchard Road.
Thank you. Are you familiar with staff's recommendation?
Yes.
And how do you feel about it? Does it
I'm
work
fine
for you?
with it. Yeah,
Okay.
it works.
You are fine with it? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, the request is to deny the R3, but approve R3MD, which limits the use of conditions. It allows him to build the triplex.
Okay. What's the will of the commission? We have a motion to approve, and it has been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next case is 2024-0002, and this is located 8114 and 8117 Triple J Trail. And this is an application for permanent amusement park. Staff is recommended to deny. Is there any opposition present? And is the applicant present?
Mr. Chairman, you have in front of you a Google spreadsheet of all the opposition and support that we received. I have a map. At the end of the presentation, it'll be helpful to show you where a lot of support and opposition is located in relation to this piece of property. I think it's going to be very helpful.
Okay. All right. Do you want to go ahead and take us through the case?
Sure. This is case 2024-0002. It's a special permit for amusement resort. The proposed use is a motocross track or dirt track. The number of acres is about 85 acres, give or take a few acres there. If you look at the zoning map, again, this is not a zoning map of the zoning request. It's just a special permit. Currently, the zoning code, we have temporary and permanent amusement resorts, a special permit. And if you see on the screen here, the permanent amusement resort includes things for shows, concerts, racing events, fairs, or any other such use which is staged for the entertainment and or participation by assembled groups. So this motocross track falls under this special permit. One thing to keep in mind, this is a unique permit, and that this permit is approved or denied by this body. It does not go forward to the county commission. So whatever happens today will be the ruling on this case unless it goes to court. But today's action by the planning commission is final. The permit is revocable by the sheriff, the mayor, and health department. So it is a revocable permit. But I think the key things here is, one, approval by planning commission, doesn't go on to county commission for review. And it is an amusement resort, but it's really for a racing event such as motocross. There's been no recent zoning history for this property. Again, it's zoned A1. To the east of this property, you can see the crosshatched piece of property, the arrow pointing to that. In 2017, there was a special permit for an amusement resort at this location for a wedding venue. That was the only process we had back in 2017. We did not have a special permit for wedding venues, so you fell under this amusement resort. So there is precedent for one nearby, but it's a smaller wedding venue. Adjacent uses include agriculture uses to the north, single unit to the northeast or northwest, a single unit to the south, and agriculture uses to the south. This property does have a flood hazard area on the property. You can see the lighter greenish blue color, that's a floodway, and the darker blue outside that is the 100-year flood hazard. But there is a floodway on this property. Here's a view of the site. It's a driveway going to the site. This is a view east of the site, which is a single-family dwelling. Southeast of the site. This is a view of Little Georgetown Road. You can see it's fairly agriculture type uses with large lot single-family dwellings. The request is not compatible with the surrounding land uses and development form of the area. There will be nuisance issues associated with this type of use in terms of noise, dust, runoff, lighting, and traffic to the existing residential agriculture neighborhoods. And often we can place conditions on property to sort of mitigate those type nuisances, but it seems very hard to create nuisance or conditions to mitigate these nuisances that also could be enforced just due to the nature of when this would be occurring. So it seemed hard for staff to come up with any type of conditions to mitigate some of those nuisance issues. This use would also could possibly have a negative impact on the floodway of Savannah Creek. As I showed you earlier, there is a floodway on the property. The proposed use is really similar to a commercial nature, if you will, and should be located in more commercial type areas. This is just too intense for this low density residential neighborhood and would not be appropriate at this location. It'd be, again, more appropriate near manufacturing areas, distant from residential properties. So staff recommended to deny the request. Here's the site plan that was submitted with the application. You see the motor track is to the north of the property with the entrance off of Snow Hill and Ooltewah Georgetown Road with 2 entrances. Here's a closer view of what the motocross track will look like. You see parking, food vendors, a medical tent, and portable toilets for use on the site. Again, that's just another view of the updated site plan showing that in relation to the floodplain that's on the property. I showed an aerial view. We have an aerial view of showing the general location of the track in relation to the existing single-family dwellings that are nearby. Again, this is from property lines, not necessarily the location of the track. Some locations of the property, because the special permit goes with the property, not general location. So it could be anywhere on this property once approved. So you can see there's some areas it's close to 43 feet and 63 feet. As stated earlier, we have received a lot of email and support and opposition to this request. You can see that my team put together this map showing that support and location of opposition. The area in yellow is the site itself, and the red dots, if you will, that's where we received opposition emails to this request. We did receive one support email to the north of this property, then some further south. Who's going bigger zoom out view. You can see we had tons of email and support all over the place. Again, see the red cluster area above Snow Hill. That's generally the site location, but where the support's coming from East Brainerd, Red Bank, Middle Valley, all over the place in the county. Stepping out a little bit further, we have email and support from as far away as Missouri, Dixon, Tennessee, Alpharetta, Georgia, Knoxville, Kingsport. There's been a lot of support for this location, but again, looking at the overall vicinity map, none of those people really were living nearby this facility. We have one person that again was immediately abutting this site. For the most part, everybody else in support was outside this general vicinity, this location. And and we also received this morning a letter from TDEC. They're fixing to, I guess, or maybe have sent a letter to the property owner. He's in violation of moving dirt on the property without getting a permit. So TDEC, this came in as of January 8th. They're conducting an investigation from Jason Dees from a letter received on December 28th in regards to ARAP permits. So there's some issues going on with the site that need to be addressed through TDEC. Outside of that, just the commercial use of this property, staff would recommend to deny this request for special permit.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Any questions for staff before we hear from the applicant? Councilman.
Thank you. Brian, you did answer my question. When I saw floodway, I wanted to immediately know if TDEC had their eyes on this, but obviously they do.
They do. As we just received this morning.
Just this morning?
Yes.
Okay. We'll probably get some more answers on that with the applicant. Thank you.
This is more about disturbing the soil without any permit. It's not necessarily the floodway. Yeah, moving because they're disturbing more than an acre. You have to have a permit from TDEC. They don't have that yet.
Any other questions for staff before we hear from the applicant? All right. Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Schultz?
Sure.
So if this body were to approve this, it would still be under the discretion of TDEC whether they could get a permit to move forward.
Yes, you'd have to get a permit from TDEC to disturb the soil, disturbing more than an acre. But that doesn't mean the permit can't go forward. That's just disturbing, the soil has addressing soil erosion, that type.
I was just going to say TDEC will permit. I mean, under the right circumstances, TDEC would permit
Yeah.
the project.
He just hasn't gone that step to get the permit.
Thank you, Chairman.
Any other questions? All right, we'll hear from the applicant.
Good morning, Chairman. My name is Ricky Nelson. I'm 8114 Triple J Trail Road. Would you like me to discuss the concerns over the staff denial first? Okay. As far as the material I received or email concerning the noise, there's approximately 6-7 residents at least a quarter-mile away from the track. Any other residents away from that is even farther away than a quarter of a mile. The dust, every use of the track, it has to be sprayed down with the water. And let's see. And then again, every other residence at least a quarter mile away than the 6 houses around us. And as far as the floodway, the Savannah Creek, the newly updated, it's completely away from the flood, the 500 and the 100-year floodplain. And the hours of operation, we would like to start from like 9 to 9, depending on the seasons. We'd like to mainly operate in the daylight hours. And that's really all I have to say about the concerns of the opposition as far as what they sent me on the email on that. So I noticed all the support. It's mainly the neighbors, but if you look how far they're away from our sides. I mean, I can share this with you as well. It's the distance of these 6 houses. Can I share this with you?
Yes, you can give it to Mr. Mabey here on the end.
I will say there was a lot more support for this track. And if you don't care, can I open up with my opening statement of why I think it needs to go in?
Sure.
I'm requesting for a special permit so I can place a motocross track on my farm for my son, daughter, and other families to enjoy. I'm a firm believer in family time and kids, interacting with kids, parents, and interacting with parents. The addition to this community will strongly help kids get off the phones, the iPads, and help keep kids from getting into trouble while focusing their attention on something positive. Also, every week on Sundays, we would be hosting a church service. We'll be hosting a church service every Sunday mornings before the practice tracks. They're sharing the teachings of Jesus Christ. I truly believe that this establishment of the dirt bike track resonates with the values and interests of our community. It's a positive impact, a local business, and its potential as a source of the clean entertainment, and its valuable addition to the area. I respectfully urge the zoning board to consider the numerous benefits that this proposal brings to the community. And I understand that this permit, when I first approached to try to get it, it is a broad permit. It falls under amusement resort. So it's not going to be like Lake Winnepesaukah. It's going to be a practice dirt bike track for the community. There's not going to be no alcohol sales. So it's been nothing like that. So I know it's a broad community. It's the only thing they can really categorize it under. That's all I have to say about that.
Any questions for the applicant? Councilman Ledford?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Nelson, I have a couple questions as a former dirt bike rider. Will this be open to the public? Will there be sanctioned races going on with sponsors and eventually?
Yes, eventually I like to move that direction, but even the races, it's only like maybe once every month, every 2 months. I would like to try to get it sanctioned with the AMA, but that is in the future. And that's really the reason why I'm trying to get this permit today, so I can just have it when I get to that point.
Because I want to make sure, because I heard you saying a lot of family oriented and targeted,
Yes,
but I'm thinking, I've seen this in my lifetime growing up. You're looking to grow this into a fully sanctioned.
potentially.
Track.
Yes,
Okay.
potentially.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? All right. You've got some neighbors here that want to speak in opposition. We want to hear from them. Yeah, I will say, if you're here and you want to speak in support, can you raise your hand? Do you want to speak in regards to your support?
Hudson Smith.
If you'd like to, come on up and do that now, because the time for opposition is limited to those who are actually opposed.
Yeah, I'm Hudson Smith. I live at 51 or 48 Dunlap. And I've been involved with FCA, Fellowship of Christian Athletes, and they have a dirt bike side of it. And I've been involved with them ever since 2010. And then I came on staff, basically a missionary at the motocross track from 2016 to 2021. And the sport of motocross is just every track wants a church service. And it's the most family oriented place that you can be. It's safe. It's God's welcome there. And it just teaches the kids mechanical skills. It teaches the kids hard work. It teaches the kids to never give up. And it's just a great atmosphere for a family to go, because on the weekends, you know where your kid's at the motocross track, the dad and the family, the mom and the dad, or the coach or the mechanic, you know what your kid's teaching, versus in the locker room, you don't know what they're learning, versus your locker room is the motorhome to the track, anywhere from an hour to 10 hours away or across country. And so the sport of motocross is just a great family atmosphere. And it's just a great opportunity for kids to get outside and to ride dirt bikes and just to do something challenging, because it's not easy.
Thank you. Anybody else want to speak in support? Come on up. If you want to speak in support, come on up to the mic.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mark Stevenson, 5612 Landrum Drive, Newellswall. I've been around the sport since 1978. I've announced at most of the tracks in the southern 6 states. Earlier, I was talking to a couple that live out in that area, and I said, "What is your opposition?" The noise. I said, "Have you ever been to a motocross race?" No. Then how can you complain about the noise if you've never been to one? The noise levels, the decibel levels of the exhaust pipes have been brought down in the past 22 years. A lot of tracks have decibel readings, which the traveling noise goes less than 1/8 of a mile. So if you have properties a 1/4 mile or more away, they won't even hear it. You can hear roosters when they cluck or crow, whatever they do. The decibel reading is 112. Dirt bikes are at 90. Thank you.
Sir, can you come back up to the mic? There's a question for you.
I'm sorry.
Thank you,
Councilman
Mr. Chairman.
Medford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question, you said you announced, so at the dirt bike tracks, they have loudspeakers and announcements.
Correct. But this is a practice facility. There will be no announcing here.
No announcing.
Not at this track. If they go AMA sanctioned, which is
That's
a
where I was going.
lot,
That's right.
takes a lot to get AMA sanctioned, which would probably be about a 5-year process. So the loudspeakers, they are actually tuned into the track. I announced at Tunnel Hill Motocross Track years ago. On the top of the hill, you could not hear my speaking. And that was less than a 1/4 mile away.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Yes, ma'am.
My son join me up here. So my husband's been racing pro for a bit, and he hasn't in a while, but he's getting back into it. So he has really good experience. my son here also races, and I'll say that we've been to the track and I can't hear the announcers without being tuned into the vehicle. I mean, I'll tell you that. We'll be right there. You can't hear what they're saying.
And then, like you said, the dust problem. Because I've been to lots, they always get watered down. So it's just either gonna be muddy or just there's no dust whatsoever.
Yeah, really, if you're a responsible track owner, nobody wants dust. I mean, we don't want it. I don't want to be sitting in it. I've never had an issue when I've watched the races. So there shouldn't be any surrounding. As far as the noise, but I have to agree what he was saying a little bit earlier. That, yeah, no, I don't think it travels a quarter mile. Of course, we'd have to pull up any scientific documentation for that, but as far as I'm aware, personal experience, it does not go that far. I know another concern was traffic. I'll have to say I don't feel like that's as big as an issue as people I think are making it out to be, because it's not like people are just kind of like coming and going constantly. It's people are going, they're staying most of the day, then they go at a certain time. And I think really, like he was saying about the AMA and getting approval for that, that's going to be, I mean, that's a big lofty goal that kind of happens later down the road. For now, you know, with family and everything, I mean, it's not going to be some crazy.
And we have some people in the neighborhood with motor devices also, they just use it right around the neighborhood because there's no tracks.
And that's an issue as well.
The closest track is
yeah.
an hour to an hour and 30 minutes away.
Yeah. And then having issues with people kind of their kids running and doing whatever in unsafe areas that I don't really think is a great idea. And the fact that, you know, nowadays for youth, it's very hard to find things that are positive and family friendly and encouraging that put these influence around you that set you up for, you know, success. And to have something like this nearby that my son can go and ride is a pretty big deal. There's so much out there that are trying to get at our youth nowadays. They're trying to destroy them and bring them down, that this is only something that could be positive. And it really is, I think, a great way for a family to be together because, you know, his father goes and rides with him and everything else. And it's just like, you know, dad and the kids and everybody gets involved. And it's really nice. And we really need that around here. I think, honestly, it blows my mind that everybody was opposing this, but didn't say anything about the subdivisions down the road that are going in. I mean, which is crazy.
Can you state your name and address for the record?
Alicia Swift, and I live off of Hunter Road at 7078 Klingler Lane. So I'm actually, I mean, I'm not super close by, but I live in Ottawa.
Thank you.
So thank you.
All right. So if you're here and you want to speak in opposition to this case, please come up to the microphone and line up on the left side here. My left, your right. You can take a seat. I mean, unless you want to stand the whole time, but we've recognized that you're here. Thank you.
All right, good afternoon. My name is Stacy Hall, and I live at 9834 Ottawa, Georgetown Road. I'm here today on behalf of my family and all of the families that live in the community where the request has been made for a permanent amusement resort permit, and we are here to ask that you deny this request. Everyone here today agrees that property owners should be able to do with their land as they see fit, but not at the detriment of all of the other property owners in the area. We also understand that tax maps make this appear to be a large tract of land in a rural area. But in reality, we are a community of several families that have been neighbors for many years. We spend time together and we enjoy the property that we have spent years maintaining. We are not opposed to the landowner preparing the land for his children, personal friends, and family to ride motocross bikes, as he stated in his application. This private use of the land would not require a permanent amusement resort permit. Most of the people with me today are second, third, and fourth generation landowners, and their families have grown up there. We have in the past, we currently ride. We have dirt bikes, four-wheelers. We live in the country. That's what we do. That use of the land for private enjoyment is not what we are opposed to. What we are opposed to is the granting of a permanent amusement resort permit, which would allow for the commercial use of this land now and in the future. I don't know how far they plan to go, as he has said. It sounds like he's going to take it up a level. But it is obvious from what he has said, from his application, it includes 90,000 square feet of parking. That is not just for friends and family. It would be a place where riders would come from everywhere, not just the landowner. They would potentially be able to bring in RVs, stay overnight. We don't know what the exact plans are. That opens up lots of safety concerns in our area as well. What could amount to to hundreds of people constantly coming and going with no regulation would be a huge safety hazard for our community. The resort could allow for uses in the future, as he said, for shows, concerts, fairs. Once that permit is granted, it's permanent. Our only way to stop problematic activity in the community would be through the mayor, the health department, or the sheriff's office. And it would be up to local law enforcement's discretion as to what constitutes a nuisance. An amusement resort of this scale would certainly present nuisances. The increased foot traffic, vehicle traffic, and noise pollution that would be introduced by a permanent amusement resort would change the allowed use of this land forever and destroy the quality of life that we've enjoyed for generations. Let me give you some examples. Mr. Perry, who is here with me today, he owns the property that lies on the eastern property line of the proposed development. It spans his entire back property line. The proposed track would be approximately only 600 feet from the back of his house. He would be able to sit on his back porch and announce the standings as they went by. It is entirely too close to a private residence for something of this nature. If this permit is granted, his family's ability to enjoy their home would be irreparably harmed. The noise and environmental pollution would negatively impact the experience of his pool, his pole barn, which is used for family gatherings, and neighborhood cookouts. My family lives directly across the street, close enough that I would be able to sit on my front porch and watch the riders as they go around the track. We, along with many neighbors, have pools that we're concerned about could be negatively impacted due to the dust and dirt. I know they've said they'll keep it watered. We don't know. It's just too close to residential homeowners. There would be environmental quality of life changes too. The property owner to the north of the proposed site has owned his property with an 11-acre pond for over 38 years. He fishes this long-established pond with his grandchildren and allows others in our community to fish there as well. The pond is a home to wildlife and waterfowl. It includes bald eagles, white egrets, kingfishers, and geese, just to name a few. Another small pond on his property has been used in part to train dogs, including seeing eye dogs. All of this natural habitat would be within 300 feet of the proposed track and would be permanently destroyed along with everything this family and the community enjoy about it today.
Ma'am,
Yes,
I want to make sure that the folks behind you have an opportunity to speak.
sure,
Thank you.
sure.
Hello, my name is Michael Clements. I live 2/10 of a mile away from at 10,004 Udwa, Georgetown Road. My wife and I have just finished remodeling our forever home. We have 3 children and 5 grandchildren we love it here in the quiet agricultural community. I've spent 20 years creating habitat for sandhill cranes, deer, ducks, and turkey for myself and my grandchildren to have a place to enjoy, relax, hunt, and fish. The sounds of the commercial motocross track would disrupt the peace and serenity and run off the deer, sandhill cranes, and everything. And they say there's not that much noise when the bicycle riders ride up Udwa, Georgetown Road. I can hear every one of them talking, and I'm 600 yards away in a deer stand. So you will be able to hear this because it echoes off the mountain. It's like a megaphone. We also have a pair of eagles in the immediate area of the proposed track. They have nested twice in the past several years on Tommy Housley's property that is directly connected to where the track would go. The pair of eagles can be seen every day flying Savannah Creek and feeding out of Tommy's pond. The property is 110 yards away from the pond. I went out and read it with a rangefinder yesterday. According to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Department under National Bald Eagle Management Guidelines, all loud noises and human interference should be kept a minimum around feeding, roosting, and potential nesting areas of the eagles. They recommend that it is 330 feet if there's buffers, trees, rolling hills, which there is not, and a minimum of 660 feet if there is plain line of sight to the nesting, feeding, or roosting areas of the eagles.
Sir, there's maybe 4 people that want to speak
Okay.
behind you. I just want to make sure they have the opportunity to speak.
I'm Bill Perry, 9837 Ottawa, Georgetown Road. There's 65 homes within a half mile north or south on Ottawa, Georgetown and Snow Hill Road. There's 15 homes with direct eyesight of this track. The decibel level, if you go to FIM, who's the national sanctioning body, who is the international sanctioning body for motocross, says the decibel level for an average motocross bike is 106 to 120 decibels. Compare that to an ambulance, there's 114. That gives a motocross bike an average of 113 decibels. That's not for our neighborhood. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Lindsay Parker, and I live at 9809 Snow Hill Road. Grew up there. My parents bought the property when I was 6. My child now rides freely on our property on her own ATVs as well. My issue with this was I was never given an opportunity or a notice that this was coming until I found dump trucks. The dump trucks, and when I found out the listing, it was listed as an Ottawa, Georgetown, but yet dead at the end of my driveway is also an exit or entrance. How is that going to affect my life? I have horses, I have children. You tell me that you have people from Missouri who are looking at this. Do I have to worry about my 11, 12-year-old, 13-year-old daughter riding by herself on my private property that somebody from Missouri may take? Do I have to worry about other children thinking that they can ride through my yard because I'm at the end of what is an exit? Do I want to wait to get in my own driveway for them to get their trailers and their mud and their stuff out? I am not against children riding. Like I said, I have my own. I do not think in a residential area where we are 3 and 4 generations deep, don't want something like this. You want to ride with your family? Great. Keep it family. Like he said, he is interested in a 5-year plan to bring in that permanent motocross race. I love going to dirt tracks. I love going to motocross. Have nothing against any of those. I do when I have to open my windows on a spring day at a 9 a.m. to cook breakfast and hear it, or to have my windows open at a 9 p.m., which he said he would end it at. Therefore, I would have to listen to and eat dust with my dinner.
Ma'am, we're out of time. Thank y'all. Commissioner, do you wish to say something?
Thank you, Chairman. Commissioner Jeff Eversole, 10210 Highway 58 in Ottawa. I just want to, this, I guess, request for special permit kind of concerns me, because if we're not careful, we're going to open up a Pandora's box. Special permit basically means that the permit's going to follow the piece of property. And there's so many obligations that kind of get taken away from the county that get put on the state. And I'll give you an example. Currently right now, Hamilton County does not have a liquor by the drink license. If you apply for amusement or a special permit, you can actually go to the state and request and apply for a permit to sell alcohol. And it can be granted, and it goes completely against what the county has, since we don't have a liquor by the drink license. That Pandora box, I don't think we're going to have to be real careful right now. This is not about refusing for a family, kids, grandkids to go out and ride bikes or motorbikes. It's not about that. Build a track, let your kids ride it, invite their friends over, have fun with it. The commercialization of it is the concern that I've got. The special permit that goes with that is a concern I've got. This is not the right location. This is not the right place. The RPA staff has identified most of the things that I would said that kind of go with this. So I'm opposed to us doing this in this particular area. So I'd ask for you to please deny this and let us have an opportunity as a county to really get back in and to define what we're going to do as a county in the future as it relates to special amusement permits and so forth in the future. Because right now we're not, I don't think as a county, we don't want to open that box yet until we get better definitions and how we can manage that ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you. The applicant can come back up. You've had the opportunity to hear the concerns of your neighbors. You've got 2 minutes to respond.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So I just heard the opposition about deers, ducks, cranes, mud, and people from Missouri. Whether you like it or not, Ooltewah is growing. It's expanding. Just south of me, what, a half mile, there's new developments, subdivisions. I'm a home builder, so I don't oppose that. There's 3 developments to the north of me. So they're worried about their ducks and cranes. What about the developments coming in? 500 houses, 500 houses, 400 houses. So where's your opposition on that? And that's all I'd say on that.
Yes, Mr. Brown.
On to county commission?
It does not. It stops. It's one of those ones that's rest of the planning commission.
Okay. I don't know if this is relevant for this group, but I'm just like, the curiosity's running wild. Heard a lot about decibel levels, and I am not that kind of person that understands that science, but I mean, if you have one bike coupled with 10 with the decibel level of over 100, what does everything collectively do to the noise? It's one thing to have 1 or 2 bikes running around. You've got folks, I mean, that's just something I'm thinking about. So.
I can't give you a scientific explanation on that. Like I said, we've got it's going to be like roughly 10 acres, and you see the spread out the houses around us. So it's not going to travel. It's not going to be in people's windows.
Okay.
I mean,
I really want to think about this equitably. Like,
yeah,
not a targeted question. I really do kind of want to understand.
yeah, and the dust that's not going to happen because people don't ride on the tracks when it's dusty. We come in water trucks, tractors, and we spray the track down. We put sawdust on top of it so it retains the moisture. So the dust is not an issue, and definitely not the floodplain. Yeah. Any more questions?
Any other questions? Mr. Anderson.
Thank you, Chairman. Not a question, but to answer Adam's question too, knowing the decibel level is only part of that equation. I'm not saying I'm for or against this, but there's a number missing, and that's how far away do you measure? Because that decibel level change, we deal with this a lot at the city, and you need to know what the decibel level is and from how far away the reading was taken.
Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Nelson, have you run an experiment on this?
Experiment?
Yeah, with your neighbors?
No.
I mean, everyone's saying they know what it is and what it isn't.
Yeah. No,
Have you actually run a 4-stroke out there?
So my son and I, we run a 2-stroke and a 4-stroke dirt bike on our property, every day. That's what he loves to do. So I do that, but I don't go ask my neighbors what they do.
No, I'm just curious because we hear a lot about distances and and whatnot. I'm curious if anybody has actually heard it. I'm not going to ask that question.
Right.
Because
I get complaints if I shoot, I love target practicing firearms. I get complaints if I shoot in my firearms.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm definitely didn't go ask them if they heard anything about my dirt bike. So.
Okay.
No, but as far as the decimal levels, they don't add up. If that's your question.
My next question is for Brian.
All right. Thank you, sir. Did you have a question for the applicant? Okay. You can have a seat.
Thank you, Chairman.
You had a question for
I do.
Mr. Schultz?
Yeah, Mr. Schultz, I have a question, so make sure I'm understanding this. So they have a right to use the property to build a track on it now because they're already riding.
Yeah, anybody has a right to.
Okay, so they could build a track and they could have any group of folks come and visit as friends and family, and that's within their rights currently, correct?
Yeah, I would assume so.
I don't know who can.
I'm not a code
sometimes I
enforcement
wish
guy,
we had an attorney here because these are.
It's private property. You have the right to do that. I think when you go beyond starting people coming,
Okay.
charging to come, and then all of a sudden you have medical tents and food vendors, it's becoming more into commercial nature. Therefore, complaints are going out. I guess code enforcement have to go out, inspect who all's here. How do you prove you're not related by family? There's family getting together. I think it becomes very difficult to enforce.
Well, that would be with any condition.
Any condition. That's why we didn't come up with the conditions.
We
It's
see that
hard.
with short-term vacation rentals
Yeah.
as well. So I mean, any type of use of a property is going to have that conditional challenge, if you would. What I'm trying to figure out is whether it's the track being used by family and friends and church groups or whatnot, or is it the obtaining the permanent entertainment permit. And it's already been stated, I think Commissioner Eversole was right. It does travel with the property. So
Correct. It doesn't go to the property owner. It goes to the property, but with that
With the
special
property.
permit, it could be, I guess you could condition it to the motocross event only. There's a lot of things that come with this permit under
well, and
definition.
and that's what was my next question. Along with that, there are no conditions.
Correct, because we had a denial.
So there are no conditions with this. So Mr. Nelson, what you're asking for absolutely has zero conditions. And there is obviously a lot of concerns with that, because with that, this property could be in the future, honestly, quite frankly, it could be very easily grown to such a level, then sold to a major corporation and built upon. And I think that's the fear. It's not the track, is what I'm hearing. It's what this could be with the permit, especially with zero conditions. So I understand the fear, especially with zero conditions placed on this. I understand the concern of the community. So I'll stop there. Thank you.
Commissioner Chauncey, did you have a question as well?
Well, I don't have a question. I do appreciate everything here, everything that was said here. I can certainly see both sides to this. It's just hard for me to get on board with the commercialization of this property. So based on staff's recommendations to deny, I move to deny.
Second. We have a motion to deny. We have a motion to deny. It has been seconded. Any discussion? Yeah, Mr. Bird.
I've just got a couple questions about this permit. So it's been said that this is a permanent permit. There's no expiration date on it.
Nope. We have two different type of permits, one temporary and permanent. This is a permanent application.
Okay.
Temporary would be like a weekend fall festival or something like that.
Right. And can we as a body put any conditions on this, or is it
I
regular?
didn't hear you. Oh, yeah. That's, what was your other question?
Can we as a body put any conditions on this, or is it limited under?
No, you can, just like it's on the case, put conditions on it if you so choose. Even this point, this is a revocable permit as well.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you all for being here.
Just for the record, since this was a special permit that was denied to this body, the applicant has to wait a year to come back for any other type of zoning or special permit on this property, since that happened at Planning Commission. Yes. I think so.
Special permit.
Hey, we've got a meeting that we need to finish. If y'all could please work your way out the door and get the door closed behind you. All right, the next case on the agenda is case 2024-0003, and this is located at 773 Hickson Pike, and it's an application to rezone from A1 and R2A and M3. I'm sorry. Let me reread this. It's an application to rezone from A1 Agricultural District, R2A Rural District, and M3 Warehouse and Wholesale District with conditions 2 RTZ. Staff is recommended to approve with conditions. Is there any opposition present? Sir? Sir, are you in opposition?
He's talking.
Oh, okay, all right. Is the applicant present? All right. And do you have any comments on the conditions? Okay. We have a motion to approve with conditions, and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next case on the agenda is case 2024-0005, and this is located at 7100 Hickson Pike, and it's an application to rezone from R3MD to C2. Staff is recommended to deny. Is there any opposition present? Is the applicant present? Okay, I see that. I saw your hands go up. Are you here in opposition on this case? I'm sorry about that. I will say that it will be heard. What was that last case? Is that?
That's county.
That'll be heard at the county commission. What will the date be?
Should be February 14th
Okay.
and 21st, be both dates.
Did you hear that?
9:30 in this room.
Right here in this room. It'll be heard again. Thank you. All right, we're on case 2024-0005. This is located at 71 Hickson Pike. Staff is recommended to deny. Is there any opposition present? All right, I see the applicant's present. Mr. Schultz.
Yeah, case 2024-005. This is a request to rezone from R3MD, moderate density district to C2 local business commercial district. Proposed use is retail. It's roughly 4 acres in size. Look at the zoning map. To the north is A1 and R2A. To the northeast along Hickson Pike is R2A. To the south is A1, and to the southwest is R3. And immediately abutting this site to the southwest is C2. There has been some zoning history on this site. In 2008, this site was rezoned from R2A and A1 to C2 and R3MD. Staff recommended to deny. In 2022, a portion of the site was rezoned from C2 to R3MD. Then in 2023, adjacent to this property was rezoned from R1 to R3. There's a vacant office on this property to the south. To the north, a single unit. To the southwest is vacant property along the ridge, Fairview Road. Single unit residential to the south along Hickson Pike. And to the west or north of the site across Hickson Pike is institutional and residential townhomes. There are some slopes on the property as you go up towards Fairview Road. There's some slopes, but generally flat towards Hickson Pike. Here's a view of the site. Another view of the site from Hickson Pike. This is directly across the street, which is a church. This is north of the site. East of the site, single family dwelling. This is west of the site, single family dwelling. Hickson Pike, site's the right hand side. This property is located in the Hickson North River Plan, which is adopted in 2005. That plan recommendation for this particular piece of property is high density residential, which basically includes single unit residential, townhomes, and patio homes. It doesn't mention commercial uses. The plan does go on further to state that commercial uses should be at nodes or intersections instead of strip commercial on Hickson Pike as a policy go. Here's the plan recommendation. Again, you can see it's smack dab in the middle between two commercial nodes to the south and north. This plan recommendation, again, at this location is high density residential. The existing zoning, which is R3MD, meets the plan intent, the Hickson North River Plan. It also meets the goals of the plan to keep commercial development at nodes or intersection. Again, bullet number 2, the Hickson North River Plan recommends cluster node commercial. Again, there is commercial zoning to the north and south, but they're roughly a little bit further away, and I'll show you in a second how far away they are. We're currently undergoing new comprehensive planning in the county that will help provide guidance on introducing commercial along strip corridors. We don't have that at this time, so we're relying heavily on the adopted plan, which is the Hickson North River Plan. So staff recommended to deny this request. Again, as I stated, there are some commercial zones further north and south, but you can see on the screen the C2 or C3 to the north is roughly 1,000 something feet away. And the one to the south is about 1,500 feet to the south. Again, following the plan recommendation, the plan recommended to keep commercial at nodes or intersections and not stripping out Hickson Pike. So staff recommended to deny this request.
Mr. Berry.
Good afternoon, Ben Berry with Berry Engineers. This site's 4 acres, but really it's much smaller than that as far as usable area. It's got a large slope in the back and also has a stream that bisects the middle. Because of that, it's been very difficult to find what fits well within a really limited land area that's directly adjacent to the 5-lane road of Hickson Pike. For 14 years, this had commercial zoning. It was marketed as commercial, and it really has just sat. The reference to vacant office, I think that's actually a compounding pharmacy, so it is active commercial use directly to the south. In 2022, there was reference that it was all rezoned to residential, and that was in an effort to do a residential development of some sort. Really, we're kind of looking at quadplex apartment type development, but the topography and the stream, it was really limited in size, and that development fizzled out pretty quickly. And on the heels of that, now we have a real user that wants to come in and locate on this property. We're locating the catalyst to this is going to locate directly adjacent to that pharmacy on kind of the south end. So there'll be 2 commercial users side by side. We'll leave the large hill in the back undeveloped. We'll leave this stream that's kind of right in the middle of the site unimpacted. And as part of that, I know C2 is kind of wide open as far as the zoning. We're definitely willing to restrict the uses. The catalyst user is retail, so if we're willing to restrict uses to retail, office, just kind of the normal restrictions that sometimes you put on C2 uses, if that's something that this commission would feel comfortable with. And it's been referenced, and this is something that goes in with the plans as far as commercial being on the nodes. With the user that we're looking at, it's a smaller user. It's somebody that can fit on an acre site without disturbing that kind of stuff. And they're looking at, you've got Food City to the north, you've got Publix to the south, you've got Walmart to the west at large commercial nodes. And this is a user that fits in the middle of those on purpose. It provides some convenience commercial. In fact, the agenda item before this was adding more townhomes on Hickson Pike. With as much residential growth as occurs in this area, I think that this sort of use would be on a small piece of property like that would be a really good fit in addition to all that residential growth that has occurred. And the property owner's here to just say a few words as well, if you have any questions for me.
Yep. Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Would office not work?
I will say it's set, I don't know, it's set for 14 years without being marketed as commercial, without a lot of users. The user that is on board is retail. And then there will be, if you're looking at the frontage of the site, there's a stream right in the middle of it. Our retail user has a contract on the part that's next to the pharmacy. There's another part there that could be an office of some sort. And that would be all that would fit on the property if that use came about.
Okay, so the retailer removes the office as a transition zone solution off the table because it's probably
The
drive-in.
catalyst, the catalyst to this request is the retail user. And we did locate them next to the pharmacy on purpose to provide that, because you have an existing building, commercial zoning, active pharmacy, and to come in with pharmacy retail next door, it made sense from just a development standpoint.
Thank you. Thank you.
This, I want to I think Brian said this, maybe you said this. This was a commercially zoned piece of property already.
For 14 years, up until 2022, when they tried to make a residential project work and it didn't work.
So if you'd come earlier last year, you wouldn't have had to be here at all.
Correct.
Any other questions for the applicant? We have a motion to approve and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next case on the agenda is case 2024-0006, and this is located at 16375 Dayton Pike. And it's an application to rezone from A1 and R2A to C2 and M1. And staff is recommended to approve with conditions. Is there any opposition present? And the applicant, who's speaking on behalf of the applicant? Thank you. All right, Mr. Schultz.
Yes, this is case 2024-006. This is a request to rezone McDonald Farm from A1 Agriculture District and R2A Rural Residential District to C2 Local Business Commercial District, M1. Basically, everything is being rezoned. McDonald Farm is much larger than what you're seeing on the screen. It does go into Ray County to the north, which is the sort of lighter grayish color, and to the east, the crosshatched area. That's also part of McDonald Farm. But the only thing being requested to be rezoned today is everything to the west of Coulterville Road. Proposed use is recreation, education, and economic development. It's roughly 914 acres in size. Looking at the zoning map, of course, to the north is Ray County. To the east along Coulterville or east of Coulterville Road is R2A. You have C2 along Coulterville Road, and R5, but it's primarily A1. Further north on Coulterville Road, you do see, again, C1 and C2 zones sitting there. To the south of this site, to the west of Coulterville Road, you have a mixture of A1 and R5 zones at that location. And to the west is A1 abutting this property. This is the zoomed out view of McDonald Farm and some adjacent zoning cases. There's been no specific zoning case on McDonald Farm. However, a couple years ago, back in 2011, a special permit was granted for amusement resort temporary for fall festivals. As far as zoning goes, there's been nothing on this particular piece of property. If you look way further south along Coulterville Road, you do see some manufacturing zones that were introduced back in 2021. But in this general area, it's C2 and A1 locations, general zoning in these locations. Again, the address is 16375 Dayton Pike. You can see Coulterville Road in the middle. There's a railroad track that goes bisects this property as well. To the east of this site's agriculture uses. To the south, a single unit residential, then Audubon Mountain to the south, and then to the north and northwest is the State of Tennessee Cumberland Trail in this location. There are some floodplains and floodway associated with the property. There are some slopes on the property as well. You can see here just a location of those natural resources on the site. Here's a view of the site. Another view. This is the site looking from Coulterville Road. This is a view of the site as well. This is south of the site. This is Coulterville Road. You can see the site on the right-hand side. The zoning notification sign that's on the property. One of the things that we looked at in our comprehensive plan from 2016, it does include regionally significant developments such as universities, infrastructure, retail malls, industrial manufacturing complexes, waste facilities, because our plans can't envision everything that will happen in the county. So what we did back in 2016, put in examples of regionally significant developments and what we should do when those come in. So it's essential to consider the potential benefits, impacts, as well as estimated public costs for future regionally significant developments. The comp plan did have questions that we as staff were supposed to review when we have these type of developments, and we did that. I'll be glad to go through those if we need to, but there were about 9 questions we look at, and we had answers responded to each one of those. So if somebody asks, I'll specifically go through those, but in essence of time, I'll move on. In the day, staff recommended adding conditions related to buffering the edges of the site and the internal natural resources to protect areas of the site that are important to the community. The M1 district does require special permits for nuisance uses like manufacturing of certain goods and distance requirements from dwellings for uses like acid manufacturing plants, fertilizer works, and slaughterhouses. This has helped ensure that incompatible uses are not established on the site without additional public notice and further review by the planning commission. That's why we have those special permits. I think it's important to keep in mind that Hamilton County owns this property. Should the county consider property transfer in the future, staff recommends that the applicant consider future rezoning or additional concerns to ensure that the property is appropriately developed. So staff recommended, after answering all those questions identified in the comp plan, staff felt or agrees this is an appropriate request at this time with conditions. A 300-foot buffer, undisturbed buffer, excluding the removal of dead and diseased trees or removal of invasive species and future pedestrian trail connections along the western and southern property line. That's to help buffer those adjacent uses from whatever goes on in this development of the industrial park. The 300-foot buffer would provide that requirement. Condition number 2, a 100-foot buffer, undisturbed buffer along each side of any stream, excluding existing pond, excluding ingress and egress and rights of way and or needs for public safety as determined by the appropriate permitting departments. That was staff's original condition. Since the staff report, we got some information back from ASA Engineering that there are some ephemeral streams and upland drainage streams that are shouldn't be buffered. That was not the intent of our buffer condition. So to make it clear, we added this additional conditions about the buffer condition. Buffers do not apply to those streams identified as ephemeral stream, which is red, and upland drainage, which is yellow, on the overview of finding map produced by ASA Engineering dated 7/2022. I have that map here. So basically these buffer conditions would not apply to the areas circled in red. Any other streams on this property would require the 100-foot buffer. So this comes to you as a recommendation from staff to approve with 2 conditions. Those are based on buffering from the property and along the streams.
Mr. Schultz, maybe you can speak to why staff is recommending buffers when it's already regulated. Why the additional buffer? I mean,
because we don't really have a specific user in mind at this time and trying to help buffer some of those adjacent uses, which are primarily agriculture. Putting in a big 300-foot buffer helps protect that from any nuisance impacts on adjacent property owner.
No, I was speaking specifically to the stream buffers are already regulated. I'm curious if anybody knows do you know what that is, Todd?
It's usually 60 feet, depending on what the stream is. There are some other, I guess, high quality, it may be different, but you're right, there are some state and federal requirements on buffering.
Well, and furthermore, streams can be, under certain circumstances, relocated and buffered.
That's true.
You know, I mean, we've worked with the Army Corps and TDEC to relocate streams. I know the county's done that in the past. I was just curious if there was something specific in regards to this.
No, just talking about
case
protection, just more or less more additional protections along the streams.
Okay. And the zoning, the base zoning, if there wasn't a condition in regards to 300 feet, what would the base zoning conditions be in terms of the buffer around the exterior?
Landscape buffer, I believe it 20 foot. I believe that's a 20-foot buffer. I'll check. Say it's either 20 or 30. I'll check.
Okay.
We'll say 30.
30.
Somebody backs you. I think it's Mike. It's 30.
All right. There's who's going to speak on behalf of the applicant? Come on up.
Good afternoon. My name is Nathan Janeway. I'm Director of Development Services for Hamilton County. My address is 1250 Market Street. So I want to put a couple contextual pieces in front of you guys. We're very early in the stages of this process. It's a huge process for the county. Obviously, you know that the county purchased around 2,000 acres several years ago in an effort to preserve some land for future job creation and recreational use for Hamilton County residents. As part of that process, we're working with the state to get the land marketed in the Certified Sites program through the state of Tennessee. We're also working with the Department of Economic Development through the state to bring grant money to the north end of Hamilton County to address some issues such as water and sewer. Part of that process, the state really likes for you to have the property already rezoned for, the most flexibility for them to market the site to potential users. And so that's why we're doing it this early. We have not spoken in any serious nature with any industry so far. We're really just trying to prepare the site for that process when it comes along. And so the mayor has been extremely vocal about his wishes for the site. I think the mayor's staff, anybody on the mayor's staff would tell you that we really want to preserve as much of the site as possible for use of the community. But at the same time, the county is running out of space to put industry. And so we need to preserve some space to allow for good jobs in Hamilton County. And so that's really the intention here. And I'll be happy to answer any questions going forward on this.
Does the county have any opinion on the conditions?
We're happy with all the conditions. We feel like the 300-foot buffer on the south and the west side really helps preserve that, space between possible future industry and the residential and or, state property to the west where a future Cumberland Trail connection may be. And then the stream buffers, we're happy with those as well. We feel like even with the buffering, there's still plenty of space there for future industry. If you look at the map that we submitted in our application, those sites roughly would still fall within those buffers. That gives you almost 1 million square feet of, industrial space. And so we're very comfortable with those buffers.
Any other questions for the applicant? Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hey, Nathan. Quick question. I ask this of everybody who comes before us regarding the public process. I'll even ask Hamilton County government.
Sure.
Did you hold a meeting and kind of advise folks, because this is a wide open zone, obviously with the conditions only about buffers on streams.
Sure.
Have you all engaged in that process? If not, anything that comes in the future, is it the administration's intent to hold public meetings?
Sure.
And allow them to have a voice in what happens in their backyard?
Sure. So we've had 2 local public meetings as a part of our area planning process. Those have been very widely publicized. We had good turnout at both meetings. We talked quite a bit about McDonald Farm. In fact, the first meeting that we had in Sale Creek, that dominated a lot of the conversation. And, obviously there's some community concerns about what might go there. And, to that, we've continued to say that this administration, this staff, understands the concerns of the community, and we're committed to making sure the right kind of industry comes to the site. And we'll continue to have meetings going forward. That this isn't the end of the discussion. This is really just a step that we're trying to complete so that the state of Tennessee can market the site.
Understood. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. We'll hear from those of you that are here and wish to speak in opposition, coming up to the mic and line up here on the right side of the room. Make sure to state your name and address for the record.
Hi, my name is Jim Stewart, 13015 Emerald Bay Drive, Soddy Daisy. I'm the co-founder of Keep Soddy Daisy Beautiful, and currently I'm the executive director of the Chattanooga Audubon Society, which manages the Audubon Mountain property, which was referenced earlier.
I'm Dreama Campbell. I'm the incoming chair for Cumberland Trails Conference, 409 Thurman Avenue, Crossville, Tennessee. And I'm here along with Jim to support his efforts. And of course, as the primary trail builder for the Cumberland Trail, we've built over 200 plus miles of this trail. So this is very important to us as well.
So I'm going to have you hear something different from what you've heard so far tonight, this afternoon, sorry. First, despite assurances from both the previous and the current county administration and the RPA, it's clear that public input was not considered in this rezoning proposal. The Chattanooga Audubon Society was never contacted. We only found out about this rezoning meeting late on Friday night, and we've scrambled to get a team together to oppose this. I've attended multiple public meetings and have had many conversations with the county and the RPA, beginning in 1921 and continuing throughout 2023. This included an RPA planning meeting at Soddy Daisy High School in December, just a few weeks ago. The rezoning was never mentioned. We would like to know how this rezoning proposal was created and why our input was not considered. Local residents are not afraid of growth, but we don't want that growth to destroy the natural beauty of our area. We want to work with the RPA and the county to create plans that can make this a reality. Second, we believe the best economic value of a large portion of McDonald Farm is as a recreation hub, connecting with extensive state properties and Audubon Mountain. This may quickly become a top destination for outdoor enthusiasts from across the Southeast and perhaps the entire county. Many people visit and move to Hamilton County for its beautiful outdoors. Why don't we leverage that instead of destroying it? The Chattanooga Audubon Society wants to collaborate with county parks on areas such as trails connecting our properties. This will be similar to the discussions we're currently having with Tennessee State Parks to bring the 300-mile-long Cumberland Trail through Audubon Mountain. If this rezoning is approved, the farm will be unable to connect to Audubon Mountain and to the Cumberland Trail. I encourage all members of the commission to visit the farm near the Audubon Mountain border, specifically the section to be rezoned M1. These are some of the most beautiful woodlands in Hamilton County. There's a large pond within this M1 zone. It's a breathtaking site. People go there and take their wedding pictures. It's that beautiful. If you would visit, I think you would agree that turning this portion of the farm into a manufacturing site is not the best use of this area for future generations. Third, what is the purpose of the hundreds of thousands of dollars being spent on comprehensive plans by the RPA if the county can make major land use decisions which are not supported by those plans? Perhaps this effort should be stopped and the money used elsewhere. I strongly urge you to reject this rezoning plan and engage with us and the local communities before finalizing this plan. Thank you.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much for letting us speak. I'm Rebecca Day. I live at 1335 Acelinger in Sell Creek. Sell Creek was advised at the August meeting at the Volunteer Fire Department in Sell Creek to have at least 3 growth meetings in Sell Creek. This was from the mayor and from Gino Shipley before sending the plan to the commission to vote on any development or lack thereof. Only 1 meeting has happened in the city of Sell Creek. I did attend Soddy Daisy. It was kind of a cluster. People were standing around in groups. You didn't really know what to ask, who to ask. They were not proactively giving information at that meeting. There was a large group of citizens there that were complaining about a neighborhood. So I did not hear anything about this zoning. I did hear about a rail though. We were also advised at the meeting at the RPA by the RPA representative and county mayor that if the community did not want to see growth, then the growth plan would reflect what the community wants on the property that is owned by taxpayers. I was going to go into who I am, but since we need to save time, on 12/30/2023, I shared a petition on change.org asking the community to join me in asking you to please put a pause on zoning changes at McDonald Farms until more studies were performed, more community feedback was gathered, preferably in the form of in-person meetings, and more consideration of what residents want is taken into consideration, and a commitment from the commission is received that will assure us that as much land as possible will be protected. In 1 week, I've gotten 170 signatures. That may seem small, but Sell Creek only has 3,000 residents, and that's about 5% of the population. I did not make one phone call. I did not knock on any doors. And if you know me, I knock on doors. I did not attend any community meetings to get this petition signed. So it was only shared on Facebook and in a couple of random groups. With just a teeny bit of effort, we could get our neighbors to sign, and we could come back with 1,000 signatures or more than 1,000 signatures. We're confident of that. So, and somebody mentioned sandhill cranes. We have monarch butterflies. We have eagles in Sell Creek. So we would just ask that you pause these decisions until the community can be more involved. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Mike McElhone. I live at 16681 North Star Circle in Sell Creek. I am here asking for a pause, as was said earlier before, that we are early in this process. And I think it's actually too early to be rezoning because we still haven't heard exactly what the plans are. We've gotten some information through the newspaper about possible industrial and commercial with buildings the size of 1 million square feet for one building, 800,000 square feet for another one. It's a small farming community. It's an 8 generations farm that we're talking about here. And just like we were talking about with the motorcycle track and impeding on the quietness of that area, it would be the same thing with this. You're now taking this 8 generation farm and saying, okay, we're going to put in a 1 million square foot commercial industrial building and then another 800,000 square foot industrial building. And it's shock. It's throwing the frog in the boiling water. And we would like to have some input on what is going to be done with this farm. And right now, the first meeting was very successful. It was great. A lot of back and forth. I think there was some partnerships that are starting to be formed between some of the residents with the county. And so we would just like to have some more time and some more input before we move forward with doing drastic changes on the farm.
Thank you, sir. I want to make sure we hear from the last person here.
I'm gonna make this quick. My name is Kelly Bison. I live at 1819 Leggett Road, which is directly above the Audubon Society land. So we're looking directly down on McDonald Farm. I was at 2 meetings before, Sell Creek High School and the fire department. There was no mention that I heard of any rezoning. So I agree with everyone about kind of putting a pause, slow down. We're not opposed to the construction and the development at all, but I would like to say that during the fair, which we loved, we're 2 miles from where the bandstand was, and we could hear 100% of everything totally clearly at our house. So anything that happens down there is going to definitely affect everyone in that area who's enjoyed, what we moved there for, which is the great outdoors. Like Jim said, it's an excellent place to come, and I believe it'll be a venue for people from all over to come and enjoy, just like they do Enterprise, right now. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a couple things. Number one, the rezoning does not stop us from using any of the land for park space. I just want to make sure that's clear to everybody. We can do park and recreation in M1. We can do it in C2. And that was part of the discussion with the RPA. It was, how do we get the most flexibility for future use, but still retain the ability to do the county fair, to do, trails, to do connections to the Cumberland Trail. We've spoken directly with the Tennessee State Legislature, our local reps, about the possibility of future connections to the trail. We really would like to see the natural features such as the creeks, the pond, used in a recreational means for the community. That's the hope, that's the desire. But again, in order to get that site certification, the state's asked us to go ahead and rezone it. So that's why we're doing it this early. Another point I'd just like to say is the comprehensive plan is not finished. We think it'll be sometime this spring when we have a draft document that we can take before commission, but there will be plenty of other opportunities for the public to give input on that process from now until then. And we're committed to hearing the community's opinion about what types of industry go there. And again, just to reiterate, we've not had any serious discussions with any industry so far. This is just a peg that the state has asked us to knock down in order to get the site ready for site certification. And with that site certification, it opens you up to a lot of infrastructure money from the state that we can use to improve things such as sewer and water.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant?
I'm a bit confused. Was there consultation with these individuals, Mr. Stewart? They're saying no and you're saying yes.
So we had one public meeting in Sail Creek where we extensively discussed McDonald Farm. We talked about future possibilities. Again, we don't have any concrete plans for the property yet. This is just a step that the state's asked us to do for site certification. But we did have a local meeting there in Sail Creek, and then we had the second meeting that we had in Saudi Daisy was more of it wasn't a informational meeting where we got up and talked to everybody. We had stations talking about different attributes of the county, and we spoke to hundreds of individuals there about the farm and the potential rezoning. So I feel like we did communicate with the community well.
No, sir. Sorry. Any other questions? Mr. Lehman?
Yeah, I'll just make a comment, and thank you, Mr. Janeway. As everyone knows, obviously the property was bought for potentially some economic development at the north end of the county. The rezoning request, to Mr. Janeway's point, is a requirement for some potential funds for water and sewer. So I would only echo that from the beginning, most of the thought relative to this was for manufacturing industrial development. There was, and I believe Mr. Schultz mentioned west of Coulterville, it's actually west of 27 is C2. The county made a commitment with having the county fair there. And so there's a continued commitment to continue to activate that area, both for community involvement and natural resources. The rezoning is not putting blades in the ground and starting to build 1 million square foot facility. That's in the future. This is a first step. This step does not in any way control if we can connect to Audubon Acres or if we can connect to the Cumberland Trail, which have been in many conversations about the potential for that type of recreational development. I think the intent with some of the buffers, some of the other zoning on the homestead side is to have both some economic development and some natural resource and recreational amenities in the area. So with that, I make a motion to approve with the conditions.
Second. We have a motion to approve with conditions. Any discussion? Okay, we've got Mr. Byrd recusing himself.
Mr. Chairman, can we clarify that condition is also to add the language in red? The
Correct.
staff report does not have that.
It's what we see on our screen. Yes, sir.
I for one am opposed to the conditions the way they're written. At Enterprise South, the county had to move a stream. The way this is written, that stream can't be moved. I also think that the 300-foot undisturbed buffer, I'm opposed to, not on account of the fact that there shouldn't be some consideration given to how manufacturing land develops next to what could be some other use. But what it does, in essence, is it takes land and it just says this land right here is undisturbed, and it isn't necessarily even the areas that you would want to have undisturbed. And that 300 feet doesn't then become great recreational space. That 300 feet is basically all the way around this massive piece of land. And that 300 feet then becomes worthless to everybody because it really isn't then recreational space, and it isn't used as manufacturing, and it isn't used for fair space. It's just throwaway land. So every time we put unnecessary buffers on land, we're just throwing it away. And I understand the applicant's fine with it, which I don't think you should be. And I understand that you work for the county and you've made a motion to approve it with conditions, and nothing's going to change it. My comments aren't ultimately going to matter, but I am highly opposed to both the 300 undisturbed feet around the entire exterior, which is a massive throwaway of our tax dollars with no use. It's not like they're going to put great mountain biking trails in that 300 feet all the way around the perimeter, or a motocross track or anything else where if you had a great plan, you might, and then adding additional undisturbed buffer to a stream also doesn't make sense, because the federal government says you can move a stream. The state of Tennessee says you can move a stream. Our Hamilton County says you can move the stream. City says you can move a stream. And if we end up with a business that would benefit and a neighbor that would benefit and a county that would benefit by having those buffers, just really don't like these conditions. But with that, I'll stop.
Can I only make a couple of comments?
Sure.
Because those are conversations, ongoing conversations. I think to staff's point, and going back a little bit to maybe not the commitments that were made to the community, but a lot of the initial drawings and initial conversations, we had long talked, even in past administration, about an appropriate buffer and what that was. So some initial depictions talked about buffer. The stream, you're absolutely correct. We don't move streams all the time, thank goodness, but we moved a number of streams in Enterprise South. Some of that was that second addition. Most all of the areas that were initially shown for economic development and industry, which I think is depicted on the diagram.
But undisturbed, I hate to interrupt, but undisturbed means there's no ARAP permit for a road crossing.
Yeah, I guess my only point is we don't intend, at least initially, to do these, and our only intent would be worst case to have to lift a condition in the future if we run into that condition. But all your points are more than valid, Chairman.
Any other discussion? Mr. Brown.
This case being so importantly unique, like maybe the urgency of the timing relative to some of the things that Todd outlined. I mean, we need to kind of expedite through this, but there's some folks that want to be engaged. Todd, Nathan, what are your suggestions there relative to how we all come together?
Nathan, do you want to come back up to the mic?
I think if it makes sense for, some of the RPA staff, Commissioner Shipley, for us to have a community meeting between now and when commission meets and votes on this, just to discuss this one particular item, I'm open to doing that. So I don't know if that answers your question, but yeah.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Mr. Chauncey.
Janeway, you don't have to get up, but I will say whenever we do meet our zoning committee for the Hamilton County Commission, we'll have that discussion whether these conditions are appropriate, and I'll get with the commissioner in that district, and we can also have a conversation about that at our committee meeting.
That'd be February 14th.
February 14th,
9:30.
9:30.
Well, they could. And my point was just that 300 feet is a really big number, and if it were developed as something akin to Enterprise South, you wouldn't want to buffer that. There's portions of Enterprise South that you wouldn't want to buffer by 300 feet. You'd want to bring some of those. So I just think there needs to be more consideration.
I agree with the chairman wholeheartedly. But again, I'll have another discussion with Mr. Janeway at our committee, and I probably won't have any issues with removing the conditions altogether.
All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next case on the agenda is case 2024-0007. And this is located at 9309 Etowah Georgetown Road. And it's a special permit for a bed and breakfast and has a staff recommendation to approve. Is there any opposition present? What's the will of the commission? We have a staff recommendation to approve and there's no opposition. We have a motion to approve and it has been seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next case on the agenda is case 2024-0008, and it's located at 9309 Etowah Georgetown Road. And it's a special event venue permit, and staff is recommended to approve with conditions. Is there any opposition present? Is the
Sure.
applicant?
We did receive email opposition to this case. I was talking to the gentleman there before I could say, but 7 also had opposition email.
Okay.
It's both of these sort of tied together.
Okay. And is the applicant present? Can you come on up?
They approves it.
And you've got these conditions here in front of you. Are you familiar with those?
Yes, sir.
And do you have any issue with them?
They're already actually in place.
We have a motion to approve the staff recommendation and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you all.
Next case on the agenda is case 2024-0010. And this is located at an unaddressed property in the 4300 block of 3rd Avenue. And it's an application to rezone from R1 to C2. And staff is recommended to approve with conditions. Is there any opposition present? And is the applicant present? Yes, sir. Mr. Schultz.
Sure. This is case 2024-0010. This is a request to rezone from R1 residential zone to C2 convenience commercial zone for a commercial parking lot. It's 0.32 acres in size. Looking at the zoning map, you see this property is connected to the property to the north. You can see the building goes into a little bit of the R1 zone property, but to north is C2, to the west is C2, to the south is R1, and to the east this side's R1. There's been no recent zoning history for this particular piece of property. To the north along 3rd Avenue is commercial uses. To the north of this site along Highway 58 are commercial uses. To the south of this site, southwest is warehouse, and to the south is single unit residential. And to the east is single unit residential and institutional or a church. Here's a view of the site. You see to the left, the commercial establishment on the adjoining property. Here's another view of that site. This is looking towards the commercial zone portion of the property. Just for that, beyond that truck that says Junk King, that's the property being zoned R1 to C2. North of the site along Highway 58. South of the site. This is the institutional to the south of the site. This property is in the Highway 58 community plan, which is again adopted in 2002, roughly 21 years old. The plan recommendation is low density residential, which is detached single unit residential dwellings, primary use. Here's a closer view of that. You can see it's all again low density residential. The request with conditions would be compatible with existing land use and adjacent development form. It is not compatible with the Highway 58 plan. However, this would be an extension of adjacent zone, which is C2. It would also bring an existing structure into compliance with the zoning code. So staff recommends approved with condition. That condition is auto-oriented, drive-through, adult-oriented establishments, and late-night entertainment venue uses are prohibited. So staff recommends approve with condition limiting out some of those nuisance type issues.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Any questions for staff? Mr. Jones.
Good afternoon. My name is Alan Jones of Stone Creek Consulting at 1112 Wilmouth Road in Dunlap, Tennessee. So Junk King is currently located at this property, and it's also owned by the property owner. He's both the owner of Junk King and the property. He is in the process of looking at relocating this business elsewhere in the city. And so he is trying to get this property cleaned up in a better appropriate state to getting this property sold for future commercial use. Prior to him having this property, I think what he told me, this was a car lot. It was what was it called? Lands. It was Lands Auto Sales. Was there for about 30 years. So this has been a commercial property for quite some time. As Brian mentioned, the property really has been kind of illegal non-conforming on the piece that we're asking to rezone. It's R1 zone, but the use of the commercial has for years has been spilled over into this property. So he is looking to get this property cleaned up, cleaned up from both a zoning standpoint and also visually, so he can get this property on the market and get it sold and making it a better development. I reviewed the conditions with the owner. He is fine with the conditions proposed by RPA. He asked if the commission would be willing to consider removing the auto-oriented use, just given the history of the 30-year auto sales. But if that's a condition that it's not a hill he's willing to die on. So he's okay with those conditions. But I'll turn it over if you have any questions for me.
Any questions for the applicant? All right, you've got somebody here in opposition, sir. If you'd like to speak, come on up.
My name's Fred Langerfeld. I live at 4415 Cross Street, which is the property directly behind Junk King. When Mr. Aaron and Tiffany bought the property from Roy Land, they had stated to him originally that they knew the conditions of the property. They knew that the property was zone C2 where the building is, but the adjacent structure that was built onto it for storage was not. All that was an R2. That's been known since the day they bought this property. The ditch that goes in between that splits their two pieces of property, they actually dug up the city culvert that was on that property and tried to extend it to make this parking lot already. I had to call Mr. Bass down in Stormwater to get him involved. I called zoning commission 5 times. I called the mayor's office 3 times to try to get this resolved. The problem is when you put a parking lot in there, you're going to disturb more than 1,000 square feet of land. You're going to have a retention pond. I'm at the downstream side of all of that. I've got videos of my land flooding because of their disturbing the ditch. I've got pictures of the sediments from where they disturbed it before, filling my ditch up. I've got pictures of me cleaning the ditch out myself because that owner of the property now, Aaron and Tiffany, have refused to come down there and clean out my ditch. I don't understand why they are trying to do this now. They knew this going into this purchase when they bought the property originally. They knew the property was zoned R2. They knew that there was problems with the ditch. They knew they were going to have problems with parking. If they would just come into compliance with the zoning issues they have now, not using public property, they actually park on the left-hand side of the property, which is public property. It does not belong to Junk King. The road is an actual road. It goes all the way up to where they park. It's not part of their property. They use the road as they want to use it. They store stuff outside. It's an eyesore. The lady next door to us that's in the blue house that's in the pictures, her name is Sue Blevins. She's elderly. She's on oxygen. She couldn't be here today, or she wanted to be here to contest this as well. They literally have made an eyesore out of that piece of property. Yes, Mr. Roy Lands did have a car lot there. It was a wholesale car lot. He brought cars in. The building that was up above it was actually Race Engine Designs. I've been there my whole life. I've been there 52 years. I know everything about this property. I bought the property because it was 3 blocks down from my parents. They knew what this property was when they bought it. You can't just bring a business in and start destroying everybody's residential properties around you because you have a business called Junk King and you supposedly are a green company to go out and take people's stuff and then resell it. Their whole business is actually supposed to be inside that warehouse. It's C2. Their whole business is supposed to be completely inside a warehouse. All the sales are supposed to be inside a warehouse retail space type. As you can see in the pictures, everything they've got is sitting outside the building. They just recently closed in that carport looking thing with metal siding on the outside. Before that, we had to see everything. We've seen washers and dryers sit out there. We've seen refrigerators with doors sit out there. We've seen multiple people out there that It's from 7 o'clock at night to 3 o'clock in the morning. I've called the police. I don't know how many people going through all that stuff. Every bit of that's supposed to be inside a warehouse. So I don't know how that they can get this approved, being that they're surrounded by, on the backside, on the low water side of residentials, and they're actually going to wind up flooding me out without proper retention ponds and everything. And there's not enough room to build a retention pond. They've already got a parking lot sitting there. As you can see, the cars are parked in it right now. So you're telling me that they're going to redo that to C2. So now you're going to be able to take a commercial building and go all the way up to the fence line and build anything you want to build up to 3 stories high and put in whatever kind of manufacturing building you want to put in there. And then my house that I have bought and paid for myself, I'm going to have to sit there and listen to that day in and day out with no buffer. I'll sit here and listen to a dirt bike community that can't even get an approval for that. DBs go from this point right here to that point right there, and this dissipates. I've listened to a farm that can't get anything passed because of buffers. They need buffers for stuff. You're trying to get the Audubon Society. This is a residential neighborhood. They knew what they were buying when they bought it. So now you're going to try to flood me out again. So that's all I got to say.
Thank you, sir.
So I can't speak to the history of how the property's been used by the owner. I don't know those details. What I do know is he's looking at moving his business out of this neighborhood. And then to do so, he's going to be selling this property. The majority of the property is zone C2, as you mentioned. The property where he's apparently been bleeding out into with junk, hence Junk King, is on the R1 property. To make this a more palatable property, we are looking for that C2 request. Could he sell the C2 as it is and the R1 and subdivide and do some single family homes? Absolutely. But I think with the current use, this will allow this property to get cleaned up with the new buyer to get the parking off the city street, get the parking appropriately designed, put in stormwater requirements that will be required during our land disturbance permit to ensure that we don't cause any flooding issues, to surrounding neighbors. So I think that really kind of sums up the issue. I mean, the goal is to get this site cleaned up and moved out, which I think would be a benefit to the community, and getting this site cleaned up from an entitlement standpoint and also from an aesthetic standpoint, so the future commercial operation can be a benefit to this community.
Any questions for the applicant? Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Chairman. Alan, how does increasing the size of C2 make it better for the neighborhood?
So
it would be my question. I see the financial benefit.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
Larger building, larger facility makes it more financially attractive.
Mm-hmm.
How does that make it better for the neighbors?
Sure. So with this commercial property, there's physically no parking on this site right now. So with this building, you have an existing building with really no on-site parking. So all the parking for a commercial operation is going to have to be on-street parking, which is going to continue to be more of a nuisance to the neighbors. So if we have an opportunity to put a parking lot on this property, that's going to get cars off the street and onto the commercial piece. And we can even look at possible conditions that it's kind of tied down for parking only.
Interesting. Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Mr. Schultz, the C2 zoning, does it allow for outdoor storage of that kind of junk that we see in that picture?
I don't think so. You got a fence, I think casting up a fence around it. There's also Board of Appeals, just thinking what Alan's just saying, the Board of Appeals has a special permit. You can go around that Board of Appeals for an off-street parking lot when it's a budding C2. So there's other venues you could possibly go to get off-street parking. It's adjacent.
Mr. Mabee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Excuse me. Kind of to add on to a little bit of what Councilman Ledford was asking about. So right now, the staff's recommendation is just to rezone it to C2, but not limited to the parking. Is that correct?
That's correct. It was prohibited adult-oriented establishments, auto-oriented, and something else. Drive-throughs.
So in theory, the applicant could rearrange how he has the site laid out and could do C2 uses on that section. if we move forward with that
Yeah.
recommendation.
Those conditions of the prohibited uses only apply to this R1 portion that's being zoned C2. The remainder wouldn't be impacted.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other questions? Mr. Holland?
So I don't know how there's a guarantee or how we're guaranteed if the property is rezoned that it's sold and it's, there's obvious nuisances on the property existing out of compliance. So I don't know if there's a way to do that. I think I'm looking to the chairman or maybe staff. If it's rezoned, what guarantee is it that it's going to be improved if it's sold?
There would be no guarantee. You're taking the applicant's word that he's selling and moving out, and some of the users were going in this place.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Maybe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Schultz, is there, if that was rezoned to commercial, is there any kind of buffering between that and the residential zones?
Yes, it's type A, be 30 foot.
So that's just built in the code.
That's
We
built in
don't
the
have
code,
to do
yes.
about that.
That's why it's not a condition. It's built in anyway.
Gotcha. Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And Mr. Maybe to that point, that on the site plan, Brian, if you don't mind showing, we've already planned for it and shown the 30-foot buffer that actually would be on both the back, the rear of the property and also to the south side.
What's the will of the commission?
Move to deny.
We have a motion to deny, and it has been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Commission.
Thank you. Next case is 2024-0011, and this is located at 6701 and 6703 Indus Way, and it's an application to rezone from R2 to R3 and has a staff recommendation to approve. Is there any opposition present? We have a motion to approve, and it has been properly seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next case is 2024-0013, and this is located at 1920 Myrtle Street, and it's an application to rezone from RTZ to UGC, and staff is recommended to approve. Is there any opposition present?
Mr. Chairman, we did receive email in opposition, I think a couple emails, and most of it was focusing on the height. We don't have a high condition. UGC goes up to 5 stories max. I think their complaint was next door. Burnside is 3 stories, I believe, and I think their concerns was the height, potentially of this structure going 5 stories. Even though they're not showing that on the site plan, potentially could go to 5 stories. There's no conditions either recommending.
We have a staff recommendation to approve, and there is no opposition. We have a motion to approve, and it has been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Mr. Anderson, abstained. Case 2024-0014, located at 2403 Kelly's Ferry Road. It's an application to rezone from R1 to R2. Staff is recommended to deny. Is there any opposition present? And is the applicant present? Mr. Schultz?
Sure, and we did receive emails in opposition as well. This is case 2024-0414, request to rezone from R1 to R2 residential zone for a 2-unit residential. Number of acres is 0.52. Proposed number of units is 2 units. That's a density of 3.8 dwelling units per acre. Looking at the zoning map to the north of Kelly's Ferry Road, all that property is zoned R1. There is no R2 to the north of Kelly's Ferry. To the south of Kelly's Ferry is where you see R2 and R1. But generally to the north of Kelly's Ferry, there is no R2 use zones on that side. There's been no recent zoning history for this particular piece of property. To the east of this property is multi-unit residential. To the north is single-unit residential. And to the south, across Kelly's Ferry Road is 2-unit residential and single-unit residential. Here's a view of the site. I believe the applicant indicates in their narrative the structure will be torn down and replaced with a duplex. There's another view of the site. This is east of the site, west of the site, south of the site. And this is Kelly's Ferry Road. This is the Lookout Valley area land use plan, which recommends low density residential. That plan was adopted in 2003. The plan recommendation for this property is single unit detached dwellings with a density between 1 to 4 dwelling units per acre. Here's a closer view of that place type recommendation or land use plan recommendation, again, which is low density residential. The request is not compatible with adopted land use plan or the zoning on the north side of Kelly's Ferry Road. Again, the Lookout Valley plan is more than 20 years old and does not provide policy guidance on the introduction of two-family dwellings on the north side of Kelly's Ferry Road. Again, like the county, we're currently undergoing comprehensive land use planning for the city, which often provides guidance on future change of use or zoning on this site. The applicant's proposal softly indicated these are going to be rental units, a 2-unit duplex. Based on the recent ADU ordinance that was adopted last year by City Council, this property could be used as a single-family dwelling with an ADU, which gets you to 2 units. With them being rentals, this would be the same effect of a duplex, more or less. You have either a attached ADU or a detached, as long as the size is limited to 740 square feet. But however, on the agenda today, we have an amendment to change it to 800 square foot. So staff looked at perspective ADU would be a good tool to use at this location. So staff recommends to deny this request for rezoning.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Any questions for staff before we hear from the applicant? All right, ma'am.
Hey, good afternoon, Donna Morgan. I live at 558 Austin Drive. My family, District 1, my family owns this property, and we're currently using it as a long-term rental. We purchased it in 2016. It is a very large lot, as you can see from the plat there. It's a large lot. It's 110 feet wide and 200 feet deep on each side there, so a big piece of property. The previous owner used it as a duplex, and it was built in 1950. They came in, it was a 2-bedroom, it was a duplex, each side being 1 bedroom, 1 bath. They, years later, turned it into a single family there. So now it's a 2-bedroom, 1 bath. It is 74 years old, and it's a very poorly built house there. It's on a concrete slab. So we've been able to do minimal plumbing work to refurbish it. It's really just not economical. I'll go over some examples of things we've done before, but it's just not economically feasible for us to remodel this house and live up to the standards that we're looking for. And I'll show you some examples. Hopefully y'all have a package. It's kind of went down through you guys there. So there are a couple of options. We looked at a duplex, did not explore the single with an ADU. So would love to have some conversation about that. You are the ones to the north, are R1s, ones to the south are R1s and R2s. There is precedence in that area. The house to the right of it is still currently a duplex because that area previously was zoned R2. So there's an active duplex immediately to the right. That 2-unit residential, 3400, that is a duplex. And then if you go on down the road on 3508, once again, also to the south side, there's also a duplex there. I think that was built like in 1986, 85, that time frame. There's also North Moss, which is a street that's perpendicular to Kelly's Ferry, about 700 feet. There's an active duplex there. There's another one about 300 feet on Lilac Avenue. And then on Fern Avenue, so if looking across Kelly's Ferry, Fern Avenue goes on down to the left. Yep, to the left there. And that is still predominantly zoned the R2 and R5. There's already a duplex there, and it has been approved to build 2 2-unit townhomes, which I'm not in favor of because everything on that street pretty much is a 1-story, and putting a 2-story townhome right there, I just don't think it's going to fit into the character of the street, but that's neither here nor there. That's just say recently been approved to build 2 townhomes there. So if you'll turn to the next page, we are lifelong residents of Lookout Valley. My parents bought the top house to the left in your little grid there, 3613. My parents bought that in 1964. I live there where Interstate 24 is being built. We own the three top houses there on Kelly's Ferry, as well as 6 more, in addition to the one on Myrtle Avenue. So we're highly invested and committed to Lookout Valley. We live in Lookout Valley, and we want to continue to enhance it and maintain it there. The two bottom ones, you can see those are houses in the same area that we recently refurbished or completely built. And then once again, it's just not economically feasible, the picture of that other house, to bring that up to our standards. We like the bungalow 1930, 1950, because that's pretty much what that entire street is there. If you'll go to the next page, this is a proposed duplex. Once again, I'd love to have the other conversations, but this is what we're thinking about for the property, because it is a very large property there. It provides additional housing, which is much needed in Lookout Valley. It's just, we're in a tiny community with not a lot of room to grow. We do recognize that if this was zoned for R2, that we could have one side short-term rental. That is not our intent at all. And I am fine with that being in the, if you were to approve it, if you could approve it, we are fine putting it in there that this cannot be used as a short-term rental. We think this is better used for a duplex on that side, large lot, great place to raise families there. We like the duplex complex versus building, tearing it down and building two homes, only because we think 1,800 to 2,400 is what we could do for that in that area. And we think that's more economical as compared, if you go to the next page. If we wanted to come back with you guys, not saying we would, but if we wanted to come back to you and ask for a variance to allow us to have 55-foot lots versus 60, we know it's 60. But if we do that, we're looking at 375, 425, and that's really not affordable housing. That doesn't really meet. There's enough of those going on in Lookout Valley, of which we built some of those on single sites there. So that's why we went to the R2 from a opportunity to have more housing in the valley, because it needs it, and continue to maintain and enhance the community.
Mr. Anderson.
Hi, Donna.
Hey there, how are you?
Fine. How are you doing?
Good, thank you.
I have mostly good news for you. You can't have STVRs there anyway because it's a residential zone and it's outside the overlay. So you can't have any kind of STVR there under the law passed a year ago by the city council.
Did that get taken out of the overlay? Because that's in the overlay. I have some short-term rentals in there. That's in the overlay.
They are grandfathered in because they are pre-existing.
Really?
Yeah. So
I
hang on
thought
to them.
I
Make
thought
sure
that
you
was in
renew.
the overlay. My apologies.
Keep your renewals.
No, absolutely.
In the zoning code update that is going before city council for a work session chaired by Councilman Ledford on the 30th of January. And after that, we're going to 55-foot wide lots in R1 in the suburban areas, including this one. So in a few months, you might have 55-foot wide lots, which you could get 2 lots out of this.
Yeah.
Just wanted to make you aware of that. If you wanted
I
to
like
defer,
that.
also townhomes are just homes. I hope you'll come around on supporting townhomes.
Oh no, we're actually going to build some in a different place. It's just that street. We've actually got another property out in the valley that we are going to put townhomes, but we just feel it fits in better with that. No, I like townhomes. Just not, this is too pretty of the view of the mountain and everything, and to block other people there. And once again, we could do single homes. That's great. We may have to go to that. That's just going to that's a higher price. And we were trying to get something, and we wanted to keep them because we are invested. Like I said, we've got 9 properties on that street. We don't want to sell those. We like to keep them for ourselves, but we get into that price range and it's hard for us to keep those, then we have to sell them. And I'm from Lookout Valley. I want to make it pretty.
Well, I just wanted you to know,
thank you.
Just so you would know, unless there's some amendment at council, we're proposing 55-foot wide lots in suburban R1 and 50 in
if we went that route.
RN1. What's the replacement for R1?
Okay, that's good. Thank you.
Mr. Lau.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Anderson, also, do the ADUs on R1 also go? So what I'm wondering is, if you did go to 55s, then you could have 2 single families with 2 ADUs. Instead of having 2 units, you could have 4.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because it's a deep lot. If they're 200 feet on each side, it's a big level. Okay. I think that, I'm looking at my family, I think that changes.
Mr. Berg.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Mr. Anderson, if we do rezone this to R2, is there anything preventing, say, construction lags until the new code is adopted? It's still R2. You could still subdivide it and build 2 single-family homes in an R2 zone, correct?
Correct.
Would it be appropriate to make a motion?
Yes.
We're not.
Yeah, there was some
we have opposition. Sorry.
Yep.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
All right. We have somebody here in opposition. Did you want to speak? Come on up.
I'm Christopher Pratt, and I own the property directly north of them, 3401 Kelly's Ferry Road. Actually sold them the property, and it was a single-family home when I owned it. It was not a duplex. However, my main concern is not growth in Lookout Valley. I love Lookout Valley. I've lived there over half my life. But I am downstream. We share a driveway, and it's already difficult at times when the front tenants park their truck or car in the driveway. My tenants cannot reach the house. And I'm concerned that with the duplex, you're gonna have more cars, more parking. If that's in the plans to, rectify any issues that might come up, I'm open to that. Some other concerns is all of our utilities go through that property, and new construction could potentially damage my water, sewer, infrastructure that supplies my house. Other than that, I would love to see Lookout Valley get more residences, but in this case, it's sort of a personal problem because it will definitely affect detrimentally my property value and my ability to keep it either rented or lived in properly.
Just to clarify, you own the property right behind.
That's correct. And the picture doesn't show our shared driveway there. That's it. So you can see to the right of the house, that's the driveway that I have access to the property. And I also have a half acre back there. It's a fairly nice piece of land with a nice view of the mountain. And I wouldn't want to have an extremely large building put in front of it. So my view is obstructed then.
Thank you. Any other questions for the opposition? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
A question for the applicant or the opposition. Is that driveway in an easement right now?
Yeah, it must be an easement. It's always been that way. And if you look at the plans for the duplex, we were actually putting them in the middle for that exact reason there. So I'll have the driveway coming into the duplexes to not include traffic through there. And then if this is not approved and we do to the two single lots, clearly look to see if there's something that we could do to have the driveway still be on the insides of the house to not got it into that area.
I guess you're planning on constructing something on this site that
We would
doesn't
like to.
exist.
Yeah, once again, we want to keep it. We don't want to sell it. We've sold some other properties, but we want to keep this, and we just think it's a perfect level lot to do something.
Right. So Mr. Pratt's concerns about utilities and construction and everything. As far as I can tell, that's not contingent on the zoning decision here. That's something y'all will need to figure out amongst yourselves. Make sure you're keeping each other happy as neighbors.
Of course, absolutely.
We at lunch today had a presentation about missing middle housing and how important it is and how it's a great tool for affordability. And here it is knocking on our door right across from a whole block of R2 zoning. So I think this is appropriate, and I'd move to approve.
We have a motion to approve, and it has been properly seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Next case on the agenda is case 2024-0015, and it's located at 1400 North Chamberlain Avenue, and it's an application to rezone from R1 to R3. Staff is recommended to deny the applicant's request. Is there any opposition present? Is the applicant present? I figured you were sitting there for a reason. I was actually starting to wonder, did he just come to watch us work today? It's like it's on his calendar as a repeat. Glad you're here. All right, Mr. Schultz.
I don't recall Mike's name being on that application. You sure you're the applicant?
Do we have the proper paperwork to
I
allow
don't
him
think
to
so.
speak
I
on
don't
behalf
think
of that?
so.
I'd entertain a motion to defer for 180 days.
Well, he may be asking for it. I don't know. I'll go through it though. This is 2024-15. This is a request to rezone from R1, actually part of the property from R1 to R3. Proposed use is multi-unit residential. It's roughly 11 acres in size. Proposed number of units is 240. That's a density of 22 million per acre. Just looking at the zoning map, to the north and south is R1 and R2. To the east, that's Missionary Ridge. That's R1. And to the west, there is R3, which is a part of this property. So there is a presence of R3 in the neighborhood. There's been no zoning history for the back part of this property. However, the front part which has R3, was rezoned from R1 and R2 in 1999 with conditions. Here's a view of the land use. It's vacant currently. To the north is vacant property. To the south is institutional and single unit residential. To the east is vacant. Again, that's going up the ridge towards Missionary Ridge. And to the west of this property is the existing multi-unit residential units. And then to the west, across North Chamberlain Avenue, that's single unit residential. Here's a slope map. You can see there's some slopes on this property, very challenging site to say. These slopes in the yellow, there's slopes over 25%. I'm just waiting to see if Mike's got his tape measure here to show us what this looks like, just in case it's that high. But all I have is my map to show. So this is the topography I have on the site. There are some slopes on this. It's challenging as you get as you go towards the right up Missionary Ridge. Here's a view of the site to the right. To the left is existing apartment complexes. Another view of the site. A portion of this site here, which you're looking at now, that is zoned R3. So a portion of the site does have R3 zoning on it. Here's a view of the existing multi-unit residential to the west of the site. Again, here's the existing multi-unit residential on the site. This is some of the single unit residential you see on North Chamberlain Avenue. Again, this is south of the site. Again, North Chamberlain Avenue, the site or the apartments are to the right, and just beyond that will be the site itself. This property is in the historic Area 3 River Ridge Plan, again, which is adopted in 2020. The place type recommendation has two different recommendations, but as far as place type goes, it's only one. It's mixed residential, which is the primary uses of being 2 to 6 unit attached units, cottage courts, townhomes, and multi-unit residential up to 12 units per lot. As far as the secondary use goes, that's where you see the density go up to anything over 12 units. It's not a place type per se, but because of the topography, it does have a natural resources overlay on top of it because of the slopes. These are sensitive areas due to the presence of steep slopes, floodplains, or wetlands, and are given considerations for protection or incorporated as amenities within new developments. Again, it's not a place type, it's just an overlay. So there are slopes on this site they're trying to protect through the plan. Again, here's the closer view of the place type recommendation. You see it's mixed residential, and the cross-hatched little green lines indicate the natural resources overlay. The request is not compatible with the Area 3 Historic Rivers Ridge Plan or the natural resources overlay because of existing slopes on the site. Again, the Area 3 plan recommends mixed residential with the property, but there is a conflict between the proposed place type and the existing natural conditions on the site. Makes it difficult because you have steep slopes. Staff recommends the applicant use the existing R3 zone property portion of the site to expand the multi-unit residential development. Also explore rezoning the existing R3 zone portion of the site to UGC to increase the density, or consider a PUD in order to allow greater height and density in the area below the ridge in order, again, to protect the steep slopes on the site. Well, I mean, the place type recommendation. So staff recommended to deny. This is one of the original site plans. Again, this is a very, very rough conceptual site plan that we received as part of this request. You can see I believe this site plan pretty much goes all the way up to the top of the ridge. I don't think that's the intent. Talking to the property owner last week, we had a huge discussion with staff on what would be the appropriate place to stop creep up the slopes. So we beat that back and forth. We did get another revised site plan, I think, on Friday, showing this. Again, I don't think it's taking into any account what the slopes look like on that site. This new site plan, I don't believe, changes staff's mind in terms of granting approval or recommending approval. We'll hear from the applicant today, but staff, again, I think recommends to deny this request.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Any questions for staff?
Could you briefly go back to that slope map?
Get back to it. Just take me a couple slides here.
Mr. Price.
Thank you. Mike Price, MAP Engineer, 7380 Applegate Lane, representing Tess Wentland on the request before you. So this is 11 acres. It's 11 acres that is basically landlocked for all intents purposes. It sits behind an R3. And so because of that, this is really the only logical use as it relates to this property. The R3 proposed use, if you look in terms of what the staff recommendation, when it talked about the fact that the mixed residential place type is called for in the plan, says that average density should be or could be 15 units per acre or more. And so we are at 22 units per acre. It's simply combining to the existing Granite Heights apartment complex and simply moving up the ridge up the hillside. The land use plan adopted in 2020 addressed steep slopes. However, subsequent to that, this plan being adopted, City Council adopted a steep slope ordinance. So by utilizing the steep slope ordinance that the commission has passed, we already have protections in place as it relates to if we get into those 20% slopes and more. So therefore, the plan has adopted stating that those slopes need to be protected, will be protected and addressed as it relates to what City Council has subsequently done thereafter. I would also point out that when we checked with staff as of at least Friday, there had been no opposition emails, phone calls, letters sent to RPA. I also had a conversation with Councilwoman Coonrod. She indicated she also had seen or heard from no one as it relates to opposition. Now, before Councilman Ledford asked, we have not had a community meeting. However, we are more than willing to have a community meeting, and I'll have conversations with Ms. Coonrod subsequent to the actions of this body in terms of what it relates to having those community meetings. Now, I have Ms. Wentland that's here with me today, also her attorney, Anna Claire Bogus. We would typically in these situations, if community meetings have not been held, I know that the commission oftentimes has deferred the case. However, and Ms. Bogus can address this if we need to, we are under a time deadline as it relates to the contract. So our request would be to approve the request today moving forward, especially given the fact that there is no opposition. And in talking with Ms. Coonrod, she supports the proposed development. If there's any questions, be happy to address those. But I believe given the facts laid out, that this request makes sense, especially given our housing needs in the community. And it's simply an extension of an R3 zone that currently exists here off of Chamberlain. So if there's any questions, be happy to answer those.
Councilman Ledford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mike, can you tell us briefly more about the steep slope vegetation component that we did put in place at the city council level to protect steep slopes? And I'd like to hear a little bit more about how that activates as we move up. And I think we decided on 30.
30% is the percentage. So once you hit 30%, you go through and you calculate how much area at 30% slope or greater is impacted. Based upon the area that is impacted, then there is a calculation sheet that you take into account based upon the density and uses that you're proposing. And it simply means we come back in and we add and plant more trees in those areas that are disturbed. So in years past, one could go in and grade steep slopes, completely denude an area, leave a steep bank, and not replace it with any sort of vegetation other than grass. Now, with the way the ordinance that was passed by City Council, we now have to plant trees, and they have to be spaced out at certain metrics so as to ensure that you keep a canopy over those areas that are disturbed. So to me, that falls into place with what the 2020 plan basically was calling for in the protection of steep slopes. And so with that, I think that issue gets addressed.
And the second part of my question, Mike, is I know that Councilwoman Coonrod is in favor of this, so I understand where that we will be traveling when we move to City Council with this. So I think that this is actually exactly why we put the steep slope vegetation component into the zoning code. We actually created a new section in Chapter 38 to address this because of the concerns I remember in my first term about steep slope development. And I think this is a good test of it. And I think that seeing what you have proposed and given, are you willing to have a meeting if we need to? Obviously, and I know Councilman Coonrod will help facilitate that. So on that, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to move to actually approve this.
Second.
We have a motion to approve and it has been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next case on the agenda is case 2024-0016. And this is located at 6420 Air Park Drive. And it's an application to rezone from C2 to UGC. And staff is recommended to approve the applicant's request. Is there any opposition present? We have a motion to approve and it has been seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item on our agenda is a resolution to amend the city code. And it's spelled out on our agenda. And it's in regards to accessory dwelling units. And Mr. Schultz, do you want to comment on that?
I'll defer to Emily. Emily wrote that. I think she gave a presentation.
Yeah,
last
it's the same as what I presented last month. So unless there are any questions, or I'm happy to go through the presentation again, but essentially, as Brian mentioned before, it's increasing the maximum square footage to 800 square feet is the biggest change. And then there's just some other more clarification on a few standards to make things more clear for enforcement and permitting. And also just amending the form-based code to match those same standards.
Thank you for all the work that's gone into this. We've built a lot of the ADUs and, we're just under that 700 square feet. And there's a 2-story, 2-bedroom version that we could build if we were at like 760 square feet. So I think this hopefully will just allow for more and more infill development that's much needed. So
Move to approve.
we have a motion to approve and it has been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Any staff updates?
We have, well, plan is on it.
Hearing none.
Well,
Hang on.
we have, just for the public's watching, Wednesday, we have a public hearing on the zoning code, draft zoning code, on the 17th and 17th. Oh, Karen's going to cover that at lunch. I'm sorry. Just ignore me.
Okay. Thank you. And then we've got time on our agenda for public comment on non-agenda items. Is there any? Can I get approval of the Planning Commission minutes from December 11th, 2023? I have a motion and it has been seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And Mr. Payne, welcome back. Thank you.
Hang on. We're going to take a picture.
I think she just took it.
Did you take it? Oh, you took it already? Oh, I got to see it first.
They're great.
Anybody give approval?
They got. Send it to me and I'll edit out the Champions Cups.